The unsurpassed, penetrating and perfect truth is seldom met with, even in 100,000 myriad kalpas. Now we can see and hear it. We can remember and accept it. I vow to make the Buddha's truth one with myself. Homage to the Buddha, homage to the Dharma, homage to the Sangha. Well, as we know, things are hard in our world right now. I think you've all agreed to that. All the articles I read, the talks I hear and so forth, they all begin with, well, things are really hard in our world right now, and it's a very difficult time, you know. And I've been saying it too, and it is a difficult time. So, people have been asking, how do I train with all of this? What is the Buddhist approach to all of this stuff that's going on in our world? And of course, we had a whole retreat to talk about that, and we've been talking about it quite a lot in our Dharma talks lately. Today I'm going to talk about taking refuge. This is the first thing we do when we become a Buddhist. We take refuge in the three treasures of Buddha, Dharma, and Sangha. Taking refuge in the Buddha. You can think of it as the historical Buddha, Shakyamuni, the great wise one of the Shakya clan, who had vast wisdom and compassion. To take refuge in his teaching is also taking refuge in the Dharma, the teachings of the Buddha, taking refuge in the Sangha, the people who follow those teachings. And taking refuge in the Buddha can also mean, as we know, taking refuge in our own true nature, our own Buddha nature that tells us, don't do that, you know, not a good idea, or that we listen to help us do that which is true and good. And there's all sorts of aspects to these. But then later on, we may start to lose sight of this simple, basic teaching. We might think, well, that's all very well, taking refuge, but what about all the suffering and the injustice in our world? What about all that? I can't just take refuge and run away. All the issues we've been talking about recently, the pandemic, global warming, racial injustice, and all these other things. It can feel as though we should be immersing ourselves in all the suffering. That otherwise we're betraying people, seeming to be turning away and not really caring about people or caring about the issues, just thinking about finding peace for ourselves. But one doesn't stand against the other. Finding peace for ourselves is not separate from living in the world. It's not a matter of the world of suffering versus the world of enlightenment. It's one or the other. Both are deeply intertwined. As is often said, samsara is nirvana. This world of suffering is also the world of enlightenment. And it's very hard for us to understand this. How can it be that this world of terrible suffering and all the things we see is also the world of enlightenment? How can it be? Reverend Master Ji used to say over and over again, all is one and all is different. Meaning that the one, the unborn, the unchanging, undying, is right here within the many details of our lives, the many people, the many situations, the many difficulties, the many problems, the many joys and the many sorrows of us ordinary human beings. It's right there within it. The one, the absolute, the eternal Buddha nature, whatever you want to call it, is not off somewhere else and we're trying to get to it. It's right here within all of it. It couldn't be otherwise. No matter what happens or how we may feel about it, it's right here. We're not getting away from something to get to something else. So when we take refuge in the Buddha, the Dharma, and the Sangha, we're not fleeing from the world. The three treasures are right here with us. To take refuge in something is to turn towards it and to entrust ourselves to it with confidence that it will protect us. We entrust ourselves to something that is a whole lot bigger than we are, that provides a safe place in the midst of the conditions of our lives. That's what taking refuge is. Taking refuge in something that's greater than we are. So taking refuge in the Buddha, trusting our own Buddha nature, our own heart, and also trusting the Buddha nature in other beings, even those we don't agree with. All beings are part of the unborn, unchanging, regardless of our feelings and our views. All beings are part of that. All beings have the heart of goodness within them, even those who do terrible things. Universal goodness, the heart of Samantabhadra Bodhisattva, universally good. He says, Samantabhadra says, this universal goodness is within all things, within every dust mote in every world and every universe, every single dust mote, every cell of our body, of every body in this world, every cell of every person, every animal, everything, every plant, every being, everything is full of universal goodness. I've never forgotten this because it's a wonderful teaching. And we can think, oh, that's all very well, but how could that be with all the evil that we see? But it is there. Just people, we have to act on it. We have to live from that. It's there along with our own karma. It's not separate. Taking refuge in the Dharma, knowing that the Dharma is indeed the medicine for all suffering, trusting that because we've seen it. Those of us who have been training, we know that the Dharma helps immeasurably. We can't control the world, we can't fix everything, but we can sit still within it all. To sit still is to take refuge. To sit still within the things of the world is to take refuge in that which is deeper, the unborn, the unchanging. It brings us peace of heart, and then we can act more wisely in this world. Sometimes we might be all riled up about something, and we can't imagine coming to peace with it. But to do our best to sit still, right in the middle of it, helps us to accept it and to see if there is something we can do about it, or if there's something we need to do, or not. But at least to accept it. We can't stay riled up forever. We'd have to work really hard at staying really angry for a very long time. And some people seem to manage it, but it's not worth it. We can actually sit still within the midst of things and allow them to come to peace. If we give ourselves half a chance, we don't have to remain upset. We have to let it go eventually, Taking refuge in the Sangha, even when we can't be together like now. We can be together as monks here in this community, but most of us, we are separate from our lay friends, they're separate from each other, we can't all be together. So we can connect. And there's great comfort in being with other members of the Sangha, both monks and lay people, whether in person or not, whether by Zoom or speaking on the phone or whatever it might be, in talking about the Dharma, seeing each other and hearing what others have to say. There's great wisdom in the Sangha, all of us together. It's really a comfort and a great help. Taking refuge in the Sangha, asking somebody else for their advice, even when we think they may not quite agree with our opinion. Sometimes that's the best person to ask. Taking refuge in other beings, not just our own opinions, views, emotions and all that. There's a whole many levels of depth to taking refuge in the three treasures. We live the life of faith. Buddhism is a religion of faith. And this isn't a kind of blind belief. Oh, they tell me to believe this, so I believe it. It's not like that. It's a deep trust and confidence in that which is greater than we are, that which embraces all beings, all things, all conditions. Confidence in those who have practiced the Dharma for 2,500 years and made it their life. Confidence in the teachings, in Buddha nature, as I say. Buddhism is a religion, Buddhism with a big B. I keep railing about how people tend to small it down and make it just fit into their little closet. Buddhism with a little b is just, oh, it'll make me feel a bit better, it helps me get along with people, I have a little more peace of mind, I can be mindful, and that's all very well, it's all fine, it's good. And there's a whole lot more. There's the unborn, undying, the unseen, that which we do not see. That whole aspect, like dark matter, we've discovered, of course, is this dark matter, the universe is full of dark matter. We didn't know because we couldn't see it. Well, there's a whole lot in this world, in this universe, in our lives, that we do not see. And that doesn't mean it's not there. Just to trust there's a whole lot more than we see. We can entrust ourselves to that, the unseen. But there's things we do see. When you look at a Buddha statue, we see this beautiful embodiment of stillness, compassion, and wisdom. Well, the Buddha himself couldn't have looked like that as a human being. Nobody looks like that. But the statue, the embodiment of these qualities, stillness, compassion, and wisdom, this beautiful embodiment, because they're always beautiful, it calls to something within us that responds, that aspires to these qualities, that wants to live in that way. Even people who are not Buddhists, so very often they see a statue, a Buddhist statue, think, oh, look at that. They may not want to be a Buddhist, but something in them responds to that beauty, that stillness, that wisdom and compassion, because we all have that within us. We just need to awaken it. And looking at a Buddha statue helps us to see that. So we all have that heart that aspires to this. And as Buddhists, we meditate. We keep to the precepts as best we can. We follow the Buddha's teachings to help us to live in that way, because all of these things help us to live with stillness, with compassion, with wisdom. As I said, taking refuge in the Buddha and the Dharma, the Sangha, doesn't mean we're cutting ourselves off from the world and all its sufferings. We still feel deeply. We still grieve for all the people who are dying from the coronavirus, people who've lost their homes. We still feel it deeply with the people who are oppressed and ill-treated by others. We can still get upset about injustice and hateful acts, but we can sit still within the upset, and maybe we can see more clearly and with more compassion than just being upset. Happy people don't do hateful things. There are reasons why people do things that harm other beings. There is the law of karma, the law of cause and effect. We don't know all the causes and effects of things that people do, the reasons they do them, the effects that they might have. We don't know all that. But when we sit still, we can find compassion for beings who harm others, and wisdom to see more clearly and more deeply that we don't have to stay with the upset, the feeling of anger, the injustice and all that. To find compassion and wisdom, to see beyond this immediate thing, not to be dragged along by our seemingly righteous anger and fear and all that. We don't know everything. We don't know why people are the way they are. We don't even know why we're the way we are. We're working on that. We don't know what it's like to be another person. So maybe we can cut them a little slack and try to understand, not be just judgmental and cut them off. Oh, we're the good people, they're the bad people. We don't know what it's like to be another person, but we do know what it's like to be a human being. It's not easy for anybody. Everybody has suffering. No matter what it looks like, everybody is subject to fear, to worry. Everyone's subject to old age, sickness and death. Nobody gets away from it. Everyone has a tendency to greed and anger and hatred and fear and all that. We're all human beings. We all have these tendencies. It's what we do with it all that makes the difference. We don't have to add to that huge amount of fear and anger and greed. There's quite enough in our world already. We don't have to add more. And to sit still and practice compassion and wisdom helps everything and everybody, as we often say. Just doing our practice, to have faith in that, helps everything. When we're afraid, we often can get angry. Fear and anger go together. And when we see people angry, it's because they're afraid. They're afraid that something will happen that they can't control, that they don't want, So we can have a little compassion for somebody who seems angry and hateful, because at the bottom of it is fear. Fear of not having what they think they need, having what they want, or not getting their way, or not being in control, or whatever it might be, however unreasonable it may seem. There's fear there. And we know what fear is like. Everybody knows what fear is like. So maybe instead of just seeing a hateful person, we can see a fearful person. And that can soften our view a little bit, to see a fearful person and have a little sympathy and compassion for that, rather than just seeing an angry and hateful person who's out to kill everybody or whatever they're doing. When we're afraid, as I said, we get angry. Fear and anger go together. But when fear arises, if we can remember to turn towards the three treasures, to turn towards stillness, to entrust ourselves to them, to Buddha, Dharma and Sangha, instead of just investing in the fear and the anger and all that, to think, find the refuge, sit still, turn towards Buddha, Dharma and Sangha, turn towards the true heart. To sit still in the midst of whatever is going on, to remember is the thing, instead of just getting caught up and swept along in our righteous indignation or fear of what's going to happen or whatever it might be, to stop a moment. This isn't all there is. There is more than this. There's more than I see. To look with a longer and a wider view, the wider view that embraces all beings, all their joys and sorrows and sufferings and reasons for doing things. People have reasons for doing things, To look with a longer view. Life has always been this way. This is samsara after all. This world has always been a world of suffering. We just see it more now. At the moment it seems to be, at least for us, worse than usual. But this is just our little part of the world. There's all the rest of the world. Yes, there's the pandemic that seems to have spread everywhere. But there are places where things are better than they used to be. We tend to think everybody sees things the way we see them, When they had the Ebola outbreak, it didn't affect us so much because it didn't come to the America, only very slightly. We think about what affects us. We have the pandemic, we're directly affected, so it's, the worst thing ever. It is the awful thing. And there are other things that happen in other parts of the world that are way worse, and some things that are better. Our little view is not the only thing that's happening. What's happening to us here in Mount Shasta or in our world or in our state is not all that there is. Even what's happening in our world is not all there is. There's all the rest of the universe. We're just this little blue dot, as Carl Sagan calls us. I like that. We're just a little blue dot. And we're just little dust motes on that little blue dot. We're not that big a deal. And yet, we still have to do our best in this world to sit still with compassion and wisdom, stillness. Trying to understand, to find kindness and compassion, not just cut people off, say, they're the hateful, awful people, I want nothing to do with them. But why is it this way? Why are things turning out this way? Why is it as it is? Why do we have a pandemic? There's the immediate causes, and then there's maybe longer causes that we don't yet see. Who knows? but to see with a longer view, to see with a deeper view, that there is that which is not seen, the unseen. As the Buddha said, "O monks, there is a not born, a not become, a not made, a not compounded." Monks, if that unborn, not become, not made, not compounded were not, if it didn't exist, there would be apparent no escape from this here that is born, become, made, and compounded. But monks, since there is an unborn, not become, not made, not compounded, therefore the escape from this here that is born, become, made, and compounded is apparent. Now we're not escaping from the world. We're not escaping from all this stuff. We're here right within it. But we're trying to relinquish the suffering that comes from thinking that what we can see is all that there is. As I said, there's a whole lot more going on than we can see. There are forces of goodness that we do not understand. The bodhisattvas coming over the world with their hook to save beings. And we can grab onto that hook and be released from suffering. But in order to do so, we have to let go of other things, because we have to hold on with both hands. Relinquish clinging to other things and just hold on. Entrust ourselves to the Buddha, the Dharma, the Sangha. Turn towards them. Entrust ourselves to them. Allow them to help us. Entrusting ourselves to that net that supports us in all conditions, no matter what it looks like, no matter what we're doing. When you remember, if you find ourselves getting worried, upset, afraid, angry, whatever it might be, oh, there's a whole lot more going on. Just sit still. Turn within. Look towards compassion and wisdom and stillness. And that can help the world. Everything that we are, that we see, that we do, that we think, is embraced within that not born, not made, not compounded. To turn towards it, entrust ourselves to it over and over again, as much as we possibly can, to do our best to live in harmony with it, and offer the merit of our doing so for the benefit of all beings. That's our thought for the day. Thank you.